Well, good evening, everyone, and nice to see you all. We are here to commemorate a special day. And you all remember this day, I'm sure, is the 4th of November. And why is it special? Because we have, in less than a year, the coming into force of COP21 and the climate agreement. And why is this significant? First, it had a double trigger. We had to get a certain number of ratifications of countries, and we had to cover a certain amount of greenhouse gas emissions. Both these have been achieved in 11 months. So that's a record by UN standards. In fact, I was told, the Secretary General mentioned this not so long ago, that after, I think it was the Convention on the Law of the Sea, which was done with speed, but not with such great speed. And this speed represents a certain political enthusiasm and interest in making our efforts to address climate change a reality in the lives of everyone. Now, this climate change process I've been engaged with for 26 years. Of all the negotiations that I've been part of, this has been the most emotional and moving negotiation. Each time we had a negotiation on climate change, there were people either in tears, or some of them, of course, were smiling, especially those who were being pushed by a lot of vested interests who didn't want these conventions to come into force. 26 years was a period of elation at some times, but a lot of foot dragging in others. At last, we've come to a stage where there's only elation. And there's elation because we've agreed to keep the mean average rise in global temperatures to under 2 degrees centigrade, and make efforts to even keep it lower than 2 degrees centigrade, or up to 1.5 degrees centigrade. And that's a great thing. We have universality in those who are committing to reduce greenhouse gases. Earlier, the discussions were very north-south and polarized, where there were a whole bunch of countries, they were called the NX1 countries, who were committing to taking action on reducing greenhouse gases, but everyone else wanted to be a free rider. They didn't want to make a commitment on reducing greenhouse gases because they felt that would somehow impair their ability to develop. And that is gone. Everyone realizes that we're all on the same boat. It doesn't matter if country X produces so many tons of carbon or country Y. It's the aggregate impact of carbon in the atmosphere which leads to the phenomena that we are seeing. So Paris, the universality of the agreement, the fact that there's an ambitious commitment to keep it below 2 degrees centigrade and try and be even more ambitious, the fact that it took place soon after the 2030 agenda, which had part of its commitments to climate change. One of the goals was, I think it was goal 13, which was on climate change action. And the fact that it took place in Paris after a very horrific terrorist attack in Paris just before the actual convention was signed is all very symbolic and important for the world. Each one of us know how climate change impacts us. I had a friend, he was the head of the Convention on Desertification. He went back as mayor of one of his cities in Burkina Faso. He told me how deep the impact of on Burkina Faso was climate change. All the people from the rural areas were coming into the cities because agriculture was devastated. Many ways in which climate change manifests itself, many of them are through water. Too much water, too little water, rising sea levels, melting glaciers, and unexpected weather events. So the fact that all this has been happening, and we are now in a position to, through nationally determined commitments where each country is saying that they're going to do something to tackle climate change, and they will up their level of ambition every 5-6 years. That's great. And all of us in our lives must have seen how climate change manifests itself. The snows of Kilimanjaro, which I saw, had all disappeared. And I went, of course, I went for a cruise to Alaska, and I saw how little of the snow remains in the famous spots where the cruises go in Alaska. And you see the glaciers, the way they're melting. Every day you read of some climate change related events happening. So in our lives, if we don't manage to change this, our children will see a very different world from the one we are seeing. But I hope that what we've achieved today and what we are going to celebrate today will change the path the world is on and get us onto a path where all of us can hope for our yesteryears and to see setting back of the clock and getting back to where we need to be so that we have a prosperous future for ourselves and for our future generations. So we luckily in UNITAR we have a symbol of climate change in the form of Einar, I'm saying Einar, but in the form of Angus and his program. Einar, of course, is he here? He does contribute to the satellite observation, but we have a symbolic presence here, and I'm so glad. I'm very proud of the program which Angus heads, and the fact that despite being a small organization, we've done so much to give a profile to this issue of climate change. And we're going to be in Morocco, as many of you know. We are pioneering a new type of classroom, and it's advertised here, the climate classroom, where we're hoping that we'd be able, through our training, to benefit a large number of people. There are almost 40 per classroom, am I right?
It's a little bit less than
it's
that.
A little bit,
Yeah.
and over 5, 6, how many sessions do classrooms do we have?
We're going to have 9 this
9.
time, and we hope to make it much bigger in the future. Yeah.
So, exciting times ahead for us, and I'm glad we are pioneering all this, working with institutions, working with individuals, to make everyone realize the impact of climate change and what can be done to set the clock back and to get what we need in this whole devastating series of things that have happened over these years because of the delay of the world coming together to take action. But it's never too late. We can always set things right, provided each one of us realizes that we have to contribute. The responsibility is ours. It's not of some distant government or some distant body that has to do action on climate change. It's our individual responsibility. Every decision we make leaves a carbon footprint. The cars we buy, the way we come to work, the flights we take, how much we travel, everything leaves a carbon footprint. And it's us who have to change that footprint so that aggregatively we'll be also helping contribute to this wonderful new adventure that the world is collectively starting 11 months after they promised to do something about it. So let's celebrate, and I hope all of you will be able to think about climate change and contribute to the success of this theorem that we had established in Paris 11 months ago.
Thank you very much indeed for your support, Nikhil. And you were in Paris last year in the first week, and you got a sense of the buzz and the excitement. But it wasn't a foregone conclusion, and in the second week it looked like things were going to reverse, but good sense prevailed. So, thank whatever gods or blessed spirits there are out there. What we've been doing over the last 2 decades is essentially, in very simple terms, building a global thermometer. That thermometer could rise potentially, depending on decisions we may or may not make, to 4 degrees, 5 degrees or more by the end of the century. The Paris Declaration says no, we must stop at a maximum of 2 degrees and maybe less. So that's our thermometer. Where are we now? We're about 1 degrees. So we've used up about half of it, in very simple terms, since pre-industrialization. So we're looking at around about 1850. So over the past 100 years and more, we have used up half of it. And although we have the Paris Agreement now in force, fantastic, that's great. In fact, greenhouse gas emissions continue to multiply. We haven't seen any kind of significant or net reduction. That doesn't mean it can't happen. And what's happened in terms of the policy side of things, international policy side of things, and negotiations have been very important. But we still have a massive amount to achieve over the next generation. So the policies matter, but what also matters is how we all individually respond to it, because I think it should become, and needs to become, a personal thing between 7 billion people, actually, and climate change. Every single one of us needs to make it personal. And that means we need to think about this differently. it needs to be something that is almost viral, not on the internet in cyberspace, but in our discussions, in our everyday discussions. And there's research that shows that these sorts of social transformations, that's exactly what they require. It needs to be something that is everyday, that you talk about in your home. Like when we were trying to give up or crack smoking, 30, 40 years ago, when I was growing up, it was all about smoking. How do we stop this? And it was a discussion that everybody was having with their grandparents, with their children, it was in schools and so on. So it must be the same with climate change. So as a small way of trying to sort of contribute to that, we've come up with this idea of Think Climate, which I hope some of you, or many of you hopefully have caught on to it. And the idea is, how does it relate to you personally in your life? And we launched this yesterday, and we invited you to send in a little 10-second video saying, here's how I feel about climate change, or here's what I can do, or here's what it means to me. And we also pledged that those of you who contributed a video and tweeted it or put it on Facebook by 4:30 would get a little prize. So I'm going to hold to that commitment. The prize, of course, is a highly valued product called as modelled here, the Think Climate bag, produced with the grateful support of Switzerland. Now, Nikhil, you've done one, so you get a big hand of applause, but I think you already have a badge, but I can biodegradable? It will never degrade until when it gets to 1.5 degrees, it combusts.
Like the Samson said?
Exactly. Something like that. So it's not allowed on aeroplanes. The second person on my list, and Katinka, maybe you could actually give us a little preview of what you said, but because it was in German, because we were inviting people to say it in their national language, but you very kindly put something up online. What did you say?
Well, the image showed actually. I said I come to work every day with my bike.
Very
and
good.
that's my contribution and my everyday thought for climate change. And you can see me in the video biking to work.
So the idea is, I'm Katinka, this is what I do. What do you do? Pass it on. That's the idea. So congratulations.
Thank you.
So who else have I got on my list? I hope that everyone is going to be here. Gianna, is Gianna here? No, okay. I know Angela's here because I saw her. So Angela, what was your? You speaking in Spanish? What was your message?
I was saying that when I think about climate change, I think of the Wayu indigenous people in Colombia. They have been very affected by climate change. For 2 years, they didn't have water, and then it came too much. So that was my first talk about it. And then I'm inviting to make small changes like turn off your computer when you are not using it.
Very good. Thank you very much. Who else have we got? Aina. Come forward. Now you spoke in Norwegian. My Norwegian's pretty rusty. What did you say?
I said it was a story of when I was a kid, and of course it's about skiing since I'm from Norway. and I had the pleasure when I was young to ski from the top of the mountain through a beautiful forest. We call it the fairy tale forest. It was fantastic during winter time. All the way down to our house, I would literally take off my skis at the doorstep and walk in. But that you can't do anymore. The part where I'm from in Norway, it's much milder winters now, and it's a long time since any of the kids could have that pleasure to ski all the way to the doorstep. So, but then perhaps in the future it will be possible again, just to do that ski run and go back and get a hot cup of chocolate. It's very deep.
You said all that in Norwegian?
Yes.
I thought what you said is, long live the Vikings. We use wind power to get doing
You're very welcome. So congratulations, thank you very much. Now we have Moise. Was he here? There, Moise. What did you say? What was your message? Tell us.
Let's come here so that our viewers outside the room can see you.
I was saying that I come to work with the public transport, and I recycle my rubbish, and also I try to avoid wasting paper with I'm using rewritable copybook. So yeah.
Very good, fantastic. Nearly there. Julian, are you here? Ah, so what was your message? Tell us.
I said that I try as much as possible to buy locally or regionally grown products, and also that I strive as much as possible to recycle or to reuse things.
Very good. And the last person I have on my list, I don't know if she's here, is Adriana. Is Adriana here? But she also contributed to the video. So the message is keep them coming, guys. We've got more of these. Drop by, see any of us really from GCP. And thanks for turning out in force today. It's a serious message. We don't want to be depressing about it. And I think your words were right. We can get back. It will take some time. It probably won't. It'll probably take a couple of generations, but it's eminently feasible, and we've got to make a start. So let's make this personal.
And have a bon weekend.